Welcome to Your Health. I'm your host, Rhonda Alfred, and joining us on this episode is Executive Chef Bryan Ledet and Chef Kelly Kraemer, Sous Chefs, both at Terrebonne General Health System. With the holidays approaching, we will be discussing food safety and how to properly prepare and store your holiday meals. Thanks for joining us on the show. Let's get started with you telling us a little bit more about yourselves and your role at Terrebonne General. Chef Bryan, can you go first?
So I'm Chef Bryan. I'm executive chef here at the hospital. I've been at the hospital for 9 years. I started as a patient cook, and a year and a half later I got sous chef, and then I'm in my current role for the past 5 years.
Okay, and Chef Kelly?
Hi, I'm Chef Kelly. I've been at Terrebonne General for about 6 years-ish, and I've been his sous chef or right-hand man for about 5.
All right, so let's start about our food safety show. And Bryan, why don't you tell us, what are the core 4 food practices?
The 4 core food practices are clean, sanitize, cook, and cool. So you want to clean your area, clean your utensils, and then separate. You want to separate the raw from the cooked, you want chicken separated from pretty much everything. You want to cook everything to the proper temperature, and then cool, you want to cool it properly so there's no spoilage in your refrigerator and stuff like that.
Okay, well, with the holidays coming, everybody needs those tips. Kelly, tell us about the cleaning steps to take before cooking.
Sure. So the cleaning steps go hand in hand with what Chef Bryan had said earlier. You're going to want to make sure that your area is clean and sanitized before, and you want to make sure that any knives or tools or anything you might be using is also clean and sanitized before you deal with the raw food.
Okay, and how can someone avoid cross-contamination?
To avoid cross-contamination, you're going to want to use different cutting boards, different knives for your raw meats, as for your vegetables, as for cooked foods. You don't want to mix all that stuff up together.
So you can't just use the same knife for
No.
everything. Okay. Okay, so how can someone avoid or know when food is cooked to the right temperature?
The easiest way to know is to use a thermometer. Every protein, every vegetable has its own cooking temperature that it has to be at.
Mm-hmm. So I see you have your little thermometer on your pocket right there.
Part of our uniform is a thermometer, and we have to temp everything. A big misconception a lot of people do is, oh, I know when it's cooked. When it floats, it's cooked. We temp everything just to make sure for our patients specifically that everything is safe.
Okay. And Chef Kelly, there's different cooking temperatures, like Bryan explained. Can you tell us, like for fresh meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs? And then I'm sure leftovers and casseroles are different. So give us some breakdown on that.
Sure. So the raw meats, the beef and such, have a variety of cooking temperatures. So if you want it on the more rare side, you'd cook up to like 130. And if you want it well, it's up to 165. Seafood, on the other hand, the internal cooking temperature needs to be at around 145. And eggs are a little bit closer, they're around 160. But for chicken, leftovers, casseroles, anything like that, you're going to want to make sure that it gets up to that 165 to make sure it's cooked all the way through. And the same goes for like ground meats and stuff. So,
okay. Yeah. So Chef Bryan, how can someone plan for a large crowd, to feed a large crowd?
So the best way, you want to get as close to an accurate number of how many people are going to show up to your house. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to over prepare. You want to have enough food, but a lot of people just over prepare. Say it's Thanksgiving for 25 people, 1 turkey, 1 ham, because everybody doesn't eat everything. They pick and choose what they want to eat.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well that sounds good. So what is the proper way to refrigerate unprepared foods and leftovers?
For leftovers, you would want it to cool down as much as possible before you put it in the refrigerator, because then it'll just raise the temperature. But once it's cooled to where you need it to be, you're going to want to make sure it's wrapped and sealed tightly to make sure that nothing can really get into it or anything. And also for raw meats, raw vegetables, whatever, you're going to want to make sure that that's properly wrapped and everything, but you're going to want to make sure that you put the the cooked foods above anything that's raw, and the raw meats and such would be on the very bottom.
Oh, okay. That's a great tip. And Chef Bryan, how long can you store leftovers in the refrigerator or freezer?
So at home, typically I wouldn't go any longer than 3 to 5 days on something that you cooked already. Freezer, 3 to 6 months, depending on what it is. Closer to 3 because the longer you leave it, it'll just get freezer burnt.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And do you all have any other tips that you'd like to share with our viewers?
The best way to control most of the cross-contamination and make sure you know what's in your cooler, in your freezer, label it. Label when you made it. Rule of thumb, just 3 days later for your refrigerator at home, and label 3 months from now for anything in the freezer.
With the date, too. Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing these helpful tips. I'm sure people will put them to good use this holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more information about food safety tips, visit tghealthsystem.com. Thanks for joining us on To Your Health. I'm your host, Rhonda Alford, and I'll see you right back here next week.